Hey everyone, welcome to Let's Talk Life. I'm your host, London Kasmir, and today on this episode, I have a really special guest today. His name is Jaren. He currently practices as an outpatient mental health therapist. He's credentialed to provide clinical supervision to both LCSW associates and licensed clinical mental health counselor associates. Jaren Doby is a passionate public speaker who also serves as a mental health correspondent for various news and media outlets in North Carolina on sites like ABC, CBS, Fox News, NBC, Spectrum News, and so many more. Jaren's also the co-founder of Transcend Resource Solutions. It's an organization driven to spread awareness surrounding mental health and educational disparity within the community. So I am so excited to welcome Jaren to the show. Hi,
Jaren. Hey, how you doing?
I'm so good. How are you feeling today?
I am feeling wonderful. Look, I am so happy to be here with you. Me and London go way back. For everybody that's listening here, I'm talking about way back. So to see everything that it is that you're doing, for things to be full circle, for us to be able to realign here, to be able to address such a relevant topics, it is so wonderful and it's a blessing. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy for you to be here. Like Jaren said, this is like full circle moment. We are both Spartans. Hello, UNCG Spartans. And it's so cool to see like what has happened in the few years out of school that we've known each other and just like hosting things back in the day. And it's so cool to see you in your space. And I'm so proud of everything you're doing for the community and within your career. So I want to know more about how you knew what you wanted to do, how you got into this career space, and what has that journey been like for you?
Right. Well, I guess like a lot of young men and women, initially I thought I had life all figured out on what it is that I wanted to do, but that quickly changed. A lot of folks don't know, London, at least that I went to school with as well, that my career prior to, of course, college, I was a musician, a traveling musician.
Wow.
I was actually in a Caribbean steel drum group called Sons of Steel. We actually put out 2 albums, toured the country,
Wow.
opened up for some pretty credible acts, Lauryn Hill, Jimmy Buffett.
Come
We toured with the original Wailers band, of course, minus Bob Marley, God rest his soul.
Wow.
And I mean, and just really did a lot. And unfortunately, the summer before I started college, the band disbanded. So there was no more of that. And I was in a position where I was like, well, what's next? My life was music. That's all I
Yeah.
knew. And so my mother was like, well, look, you need to do something. And she took me out with my father and we applied for colleges locally in Greensboro, North Carolina, where I was from. And that's why I ended up at UNCG.
Okay.
Started there, London. I was a music major at first.
Okay.
And no knock against UNCG's music department.
Ah!
I had to change some things.
But not, yeah.
No knock. But it was like, I mean, the classical music every day, all the time. I was like, you know what? I know that I can still do music on my own. This isn't necessarily what it is that I am looking for.
Yes.
So I was like, well, what's something that it is that I feel like that I like? I was actually taking a psychology class at the time, London, and
Okay.
I enjoyed it. And
Yeah.
so I said, you know what? Let me pursue a little bit more of this. And the more I took the classes, changed my major, I really enjoyed what it was that I was learning. I
Yes.
truly did. And of course, in graduating from school, just like a lot of students in the same position, didn't have a job. Called on a great family friend of mine who is, I mean, a titan in the community in North Carolina as it relates to mental health and just public service. And she called and she was like, hey, JD, which is what everybody lovingly calls me, right? Was like, hey, look, I have a position at an agency that I work for. It's not much, but hey, come on in and see us and we'll see what we can do for you. And you can take that opportunity to springboard into other things. London, that position was a receptionist slash intake position. That's where I started.
Yes.
Very humble beginnings. I opened up
Mhm.
the building, I poured the coffee, I answered the phones, I greeted the patients. But I knew that it was an opportunity to get my foot in the door of mental health and for me to be able to prove myself. I never turned my
Yes.
nose down or up to what I was doing. I put my head down and I grinded. I did.
Yes.
That then in turn turned into like so many different wonderful positions in mental health that I grew within the company very quickly. And eventually I knew I wanted more, London. Like I knew I wanted to help and serve more people. And I would rub elbows with these therapists all day long.
Mhm.
And they would
Mhm.
look like, JD, you would make a great therapist. You should go back
Yeah.
to school. So I had those conversations about different master's programs and things of that nature. And that eventually led me to the joint master of social work program between the illustrious UNCG and the illustrious North Carolina A&T State University.
Okay.
So, got it both ways and being able to enjoy my education there. And once I graduated, I mean, the rest is history. So
Mhm.
this was not by happenstance. I say
Yes.
life really did align itself for me to be able to end up here, and I would not have had it any other way.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing the humble beginnings aspect of this journey because I think I love social media, right? But
Mhm,
I think the downfall of it is
mhm,
so many people are just seeing everyone's highlight reels, and so many people are just seeing the aftermath of like people really head down for years trying to
mhm,
just get to a space where their all their hard work is not only just being recognized, but
mhm,
they're seeing the fruit of their labor. And so thank you for that humble beginnings journey, because I think without seeing those steps or without hearing those steps from you, somebody
mhm,
that may want to go into this field or may want to pursue this may not know where to start. And like you said, you got in the room, you got your
mhm,
foot in the door, and your presence alone was able to allow people to see something in you to then be like, you know what? Okay. They'd almost just confirmed what you were already pursuing. And so a lot of times I always tell my friends this and anybody that asks me any questions about career, I'm like, get in the room. It
mhm,
doesn't matter how you get in the room. You may be doing a job that you didn't see yourself doing, but that's how I've gotten in every room. I've
yeah,
always gotten in the rooms I've wanted to be in, doing a job that I
mhm,
didn't want to do, or
mhm,
I won't say didn't want to do, but it wasn't the end all. And
mhm,
I think it's so important to know, just because you're in the room and just because you're starting somewhere, that doesn't have to be the end. So
yes,
thank you for sharing that. I think it's really important, especially for somebody that's interested in doing what you're interested in doing.
right,
Um, so, with that being said, I also wanted to share with you and kind of get your opinion
mhm,
on some things that my girlfriends and I talk about. We talk about mental health all the time and the importance of it, especially in the Black community with our
mhm,
peers.
mhm,
I've been open about the therapy that I've gotten before and sought after before with my friends and loved ones, and we
mhm,
really speak openly about seeking this therapy and needing it. And also, we're not afraid to say, hey girl, like, you're sharing, your situation with me. I don't think I can really weigh in on this.
mhm,
I think you should really talk to somebody that's a professional that can really guide you through this,
mhm,
especially seeking just that therapy for maintenance, not
mhm,
just for, oh, something bad is happening, so let's go seek some professional help now.
mhm,
And I've unfortunately noticed that this conversation isn't really happening with my guy friends,
mhm,
especially my Black guy friends.
mhm,
Um, Even more so not happening with the middle-aged Black men.
mm,
Why do you think this is? And, that's a loaded question, but
mhm,
why do you also, or what do you think that we can do as peers in this space to really change and normalize this conversation? with our peers, really me, you know, how
Mhm,
can I normalize this, you know, with my peers and really normalize these conversations.
mhm. Right. Well, first off, London, I want to really just commend you and your friends for being able to have these conversations and be vulnerable enough to have these conversations. Like anybody watching, listening within the sound of my voice, it is important to make sure, right, that these conversations are happening. Right. Some
Yes.
people feel some kind of way about being able to start, right, or end or engage, excuse me, these kinds of conversations. So it's important that you guys are actively doing this. And I love the fact that you have those kinds of supports around you for you guys to engage in this. Don't stop that. Now, as it relates to like right your male counterparts and having these conversations too, we have to remember where these kinds of things actually start, right? And it immediately comes to mind in relation to stereotypes when we're children, right, London? When it
Yes.
comes down to like little boys and child rearing and things of that nature, what usually happens, right? Stereotypically, oh, if you get hurt or anything of that nature, don't you cry,
Don't
right?
cry.
Don't
Right.
you display that kind of emotion and things of that nature. Be tough, right? Be
Hmm.
strong. You know what I mean? All these associations that naturally go into that. It actually reminds me of a meme that I saw like online. It was like a caricature of some kind, and it
Hmm.
was a little boy that was growing up, and his mother was telling him like, hey, you better not cry, right? And then on the other side of that meme, and it was an adult male speaking with an adult female, and she was saying, well, why don't you show any kind of emotion whatsoever?
Right. Right. Right.
And that association was like, this is where this is coming from.
Exactly.
It's starting with the stereotypes. It's starting with child rearing and things of that nature, and the identification that males should not be emotional. Males should not display what it is that they truly feel or what it is that's on their hearts, right?
Mhm.
I'm here to tell you that at the end of the day, as a therapist, as a black man myself, that's the opposite of being strong, to be
Opposite.
honest with you, right? That's the opposite of all of that. That I mean, stereotypically, that people feel like makes up males. It actually takes a strong man, right, to be
Yes.
vulnerable and things of that nature. It is very characteristic of strength in a lot of ways to be able to humble yourself and being able to speak, right, about what it is that is going on. So this is not anything that is new, but London, like I'm here to tell you right now that it's getting better day by day.
That's good
Mental
news.
Yes, mental health is shedding its stereotypes within the male community, within the African American community, within communities of color. We're shedding the stereotypes day by day, and it's because of platforms like yourself being willing to have these kind of conversations, right? That are overarching, that are reaching so many different people for us to be able to talk about it, normalize it a bit, right? By having so many of these conversations. So we just have to be able to keep our fingers crossed and keep engaging in these talks. Mental health is real, right? We can't just shed our mental health problems and leave them at home in order to return back and then address them then, because you take you everywhere you go. So it's important for us to continue to have these talks. And I'm happy that we're talking about it now for sure.
I am too, and I love how you said you take you everywhere you go.
Yes.
And I think we forget, you know, a lot of things, especially in our community. We were kind of, you know, raised to, you know, what happens in this house, you know, stays here, you
That's
know,
right.
and don't carry that wherever you go.
Mhm.
And it also kind of also adds to the don't look like what you've been through. But
Mm,
it's like if you're not seeking and really unpacking everything that you're going through,
mhm.
how do you start to harden, and
Yes.
you start to really create this shell that makes
Mhm.
it even harder to open up when it's time to, or you know, when it's appropriate to. And I think the same people that are, you know, hardening this shell
Mhm.
are having children and getting into relationships
Yes.
and, you know, wondering why it's not working. And it's like we didn't even unpack what we should have unpacked 20 years ago, you
That's
know?
right.
And it's so real. And like you
Mhm.
said, the mental health aspect to relationships, our friendships, how we show up to work, how we show up to school,
Yes.
it all comes full circle.
Yes, it does. It definitely does. And I mean, it's truly about all of that. I mean, it really is because even what you said, right? Like we gotta be able to understand that there are just elements of ways that we were raised. And you hit the nail perfectly on the head. I've had so many different conversations with folks that have that. Cause like as soon as you said that, right, I heard remnants of like my family members' voices in my head. Look, what's what we talk about in this house, right?
Yeah,
Stays in this house, or just conversations in passing that you hear
yeah.
with like other teenage males or even grown men, right? In
Mhm,
the association of being able to display certain emotions or talk about certain things, and
mhm,
being called soft and things like that. Like
mhm.
that stuff sticks with you. It
It
really does,
does.
London, and it discourages you from being able to be open with that.
Mhm.
But we also have to think about things from a historic standpoint too, right?
Yes.
And just how we as Black people or people of color have been treated just over time, right, by
Mhm.
professionals or within the medical field and things of that nature too, taking advantage of in different ways, right, or even
Yep,
looked over in so many different ways. So we have to understand that it's so many different elements that we are fighting, right, all
exactly.
at once, and so many people from the outside looking in just maybe able just to say, well, it's easy. Find a therapist, call them up, and go and talk to them. I don't see what the problem is. Look now,
Right.
like we've dealt with so much just
So
as a
much.
people. You know what I mean? And to think that we are now going to sit down with someone and share our most our most deep secrets and our most vulnerable emotions, and think that a person may not take advantage of us in some different way. Like all of these things are real and they exist. And I just want to normalize that for people that it's okay that if you feel that way, right? But
Mhm.
ultimately, the way that we're able to debunk these kinds of things, right, is to actively go, make sure that you are asking plenty of questions, right, and just see how it is that it works for you. Every single solitary therapist that you come in contact with, black, white, or indifferent, is not going to always be the best fit for you. Sometimes
Right.
it takes shifting it around. London, it's like finding a doctor that you like, a dentist that you
Yeah.
like, a hairdresser, a barber that you like, right? Come on,
Mhm,
fellas. We
mhm.
all had that barber that we sat down in the chair and they messed us up, but you didn't keep going back, did you? Nope.
Right, right,
You
right.
found you someone else. And even to the ladies, you've gone somewhere, gotten your hair done. One day you liked it, the next day you didn't. And ultimately was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna try someone else. It's the exact same way with a therapist. It's about
Mhm.
finding someone that matches your energy, right? To be
Yes.
able to make things more comfortable for you, for sure.
I love that you mentioned that
Mhm.
because there is so much more to that plays a factor in um how we view our mental health and how we view every day, right? Just as a people, because as Black people, we carry so much, and at
Yes.
home we were taught just deal with it, just
Right.
keep a brave face,
Right.
um and so, for in your opinion,
Mhm.
for the Black people and anyone listening to this right now that may
Mhm.
be questioning if mental health therapy is right for them, or just seeking
Mhm.
resources, maybe not sitting down and talking with somebody, but seeking those resources, seeking those answers, and
Mhm.
asking those questions. For the people that are asking if that's right for them, or if they should start, when they should start,
Mhm.
what would you say to them?
Right. At the end of the day, be very, very careful of how you compare your journey, right, to someone else's. It is
Mhm.
always about level of readiness in the end, right? And more specifically in the beginning. London, I mean, I'm just going to be honest. Everybody isn't always ready to engage in this kind of level of help, right?
Right,
Or to be able to have these kinds of conversations for whatever reason.
right.
That is okay. It's okay to not be ready. Ultimately at the end of the day, what is important is that if you aren't ready to be able to have a conversation with a professional, be able to re-examine your supports. It's a question that I
Mhm.
usually ask a lot of my patients and even friends and family in different ways when they feel like that, oh well, I'm just alone, or I have no one, or I have nothing to kind of have an
Right.
outlet or use as a coping skill. I always ask a general question. I'm like, well, who would you plug in to these scenarios? Like, who would you call if you needed to borrow a dime, like a literal dime, or
Mhm,
needed a
mhm.
ride to the store, needed someone just to talk to or someone to listen? If you were leaving town and you needed to leave the most important things with someone, who would you call? Or if you needed somebody to look after your house, who would you call? And
Mhm.
every notch, right, that's kind of in between that. And I tried to start from what considered to be a lesser or minor kind of situation to a more significant one. But what people, places, things are
Mm.
able to be able to be able to bring you some kind of comfort in some way. Identifying those are your supports. Those names that immediately come to mind as you begin to hear those scenarios for
Right.
everyone that's listening and watching here, like those are the folks, those are the places, those are the things that are of support to you. And that is where it truly begins. It is your foundation, right?
Yes.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, because I like to think of everyone, all of us, right, including our mental health, right, as our home. It is our house. And
Right.
every home, every house starts with a foundation, right, London? And our
Right.
supports, right? Every house, right, and buildings, things of that nature have supports, right, or support beams and things of that nature in order to be able to stand. But we have to understand this: like Rome wasn't built in a day. Like we are more complex creatures and structures than Rome could ever be. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So our
Right.
supports make us, you know what, and put us in a position, excuse me, to be able to stand and endure things, right? Our
Wow.
natural coping skills help us to stand and endure. So if it's not to the point where you want to pursue professional help, that is
Mhm.
okay. Identify your supports and what that looks like for you. Because
Right.
what works for someone else, right, or what is best for them may not always be best for you. Never forget, always remember that you are the expert on your life and you know
Wow.
yourself better than anyone else will. So it's just a good launching pad to be able to start there.
Yeah. And I think you hit it on the nail earlier when you spoke on it's okay to not be ready. It's
Yes.
okay to not be ready for the conversation. And
Mhm.
I think now that our generation is more aware of the resources out there and
Mhm.
they're aware more that, wow, like I'm going to have a check in, especially during this pandemic. I think it's made us really sit and be silent and quit moving and remove the distractions. So I think in that, I think a lot of people have been asking themselves and these questions and checking in,
Mhm.
maybe when they didn't even realize it was a mental health check in, but it also puts you in a position where because everything else is silent, you're looking to other people's journeys for the answers.
That's
And
right.
that's where you can kind of get off path and get off sight of what you're really supposed to be doing because you're looking at what everyone else is doing or how they sought out answers and trying to get your answers from that, which can be a dangerous slope, you're going down.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that, whenever
Mhm.
you're ready to seek out something,
Mhm.
then that's when it's time. But in the meantime, evaluating who's around you and
Mhm.
realizing, just because someone's in proximity to you or just because there's years,
Mhm.
attached or, history behind it
That's right.
doesn't necessarily mean these are the people that you want in the bones of this house.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah. And you even spoke of it, London, like in relation to like the comparisons. Like
Mhm.
I recently put out a quote saying that comparison is the thief of joy and the blindfold of progress. Like
Wow.
we're looking at other people's situations and wondering why we're not there, wondering why we're not feeling that way, or continuing to become discouraged. Like folks, please be leery and aware, cognizant, whatever phrase, word you would like to use to make sure that you are unplugging, right? And focusing
Yes.
on your own life. It is very important in this day and age when social media dominates every single solitary thing that it is that we do, and it's everywhere, everywhere. So just be mindful, right, of what it is that you are experiencing and what it is that actually works best for you on the positive side of things, right? I don't mean like being able to indulge in things that are not always best for you, that are going to leave you in a similar place or a worse place. We have to make sure that we kind of take the pulse of the things that we feel like are helping us and be able to decide, are these things really helping us? Is this relationship good for me? Is this
Oh,
friendship good for me? Are these places that I continue to go to, or these circles that I involve myself in, or that job, right, that's continuing to drain me in some way? Is this good for me? But only you know the answer to that. And only you can take the first step.
yes, I love that. What are your thoughts on Black people seeking Black therapists?
Oh yeah. Look, I love this question because it seems like London that it's a no brainer, right? Well, I'm
Yeah,
Black. Get me a Black therapist. We good to
right.
go. You know
We
what I'm
could
saying?
go.
Like, they understood me. We straight. Okay, good. You
Yeah,
know what? I want to tell folks that it's not always the case, right? I know that ultimately at the end of the day, relatability, right? And the ability to be able to, of course, like I said, be relatable in that particular way is something that folks are always seeking. It is something that
right.
can lead to like decreased stress, comfort, right? Kind of taking that wall down a bit when you walk into a room and you see somebody that looks like you. I mean,
Right.
I've had so many different appointments that have gone extremely well just by the simple fact that guess what? This person came into a room and saw someone that looked like them and the relief that they felt, right?
Mhm,
The
mhm.
happiness and joy that I was able to feel to know that at the end of the day that I'm in this position and here intentionally to be
Right,
able to help them is something that's irreplaceable. It truly is, London. A lot of folks do consultations before with their therapists, right? To
okay.
kind of gauge what that feels like and what the conversation is like and to gauge each other's energy and engagement, right?
Right,
That's okay. I encourage folks to do that. I encourage folks to call these offices and ask plenty of questions. Or the first time that you meet with your therapist, ask the questions that it is that you would like answers to, right? Even if it's not necessarily about their background, just to see how it is that they would react to some of your stuff, right? Or some things that you're looking for a person to be able to be aligned with you, right? In relation
that's
to engagement, not necessarily agreeing with you, right? Because there's
right.
a difference. So I would say just be patient with the process, right?
Okay,
It is about level of comfort and just being able to explore, make changes and appropriate adjustments in order to find someone that works well with you. Because at the end of the day, it's about you. It's not about us as providers. It is about you and about you getting the help that you need. So hopefully that helps someone.
that helps a lot. Oh, it's like, wow, if I don't have to walk into a room and explain why XYZ means XYZ, if we
Right.
could just get that out the way,
Right, right. Yeah, you better believe that because that is something that can happen. You know what I
Mhm,
mean? Like being challenged. And of course, that comes with being able to build rapport, right?
mhm.
Depending on where it is that you are and how long you plan to engage in treatment, right? Because different levels of treatment do speak to, right, that ability to be challenged a little early on, right? If it's shorter term. But the ability to be able to build that rapport with a person and genuinely get to know them. Look, I'm a fine believer at the end of the day as a provider and therapist myself, it's important to be able to get to know my patients, right?
Right,
Or my
right,
clients, or whatever word that folks out there would like to use. I use them interchangeably. You know what I mean? I like to think as a patient as someone that is patient, right? For what it is that they are be able to going through. My
mhm,
clients, of course, are being able to utilize a service of some kind as therapy. So it's not to offend anyone; they're just interchangeable. But getting to know a person, right? Like their background, the things that they're interested in, about their family, where they're from, sharing
mhm.
things about myself. Like this is a relationship that we are
Right,
building. It's not you just coming through, wham bam, thank you, ma'am, like thank you for therapy and going home. You know what I mean?
right,
Like
right, right,
we're getting to know each other. We are engaging in a therapeutic relationship, and that's going to take for everybody to shed some layers, right? And being
right.
able to do that. So we all have to start somewhere. So just everybody just be leery of that. The matter of fit, right? And knowing that somebody is black doesn't mean that they are able, right? Or their ability is what it is that you need at that time. So the
Mm,
associations can be very different, if that makes sense. So just
right,
make sure that you're patient with yourself, ask
mhm.
plenty of questions, give it an honest go, and see where it leads you. And if it doesn't work, guess what? There are plenty more where that came from.
Right,
Find
right,
someone else to be able to help you because you started. And that's the biggest step that you can take.
right. And piggybacking off of that, I think
Mhm.
it's really important to be self-aware enough to go in there vulnerable, right? But
Yes.
also if you're wanting someone to give you feedback and you're
Mhm.
you're seeking something from somebody that's going to be beneficial for you, you
Mhm.
have to be not only honest with them but first honest with yourself.
That's
So if
right.
you're going there and saying, Here's the situation. Nothing's wrong with me. I ain't do nothing wrong. You
Right,
know,
right.
and
Yeah.
it's like everyone else, it's everyone else's problem, and I'm sure you
Mm,
see that a lot. I've
mhm.
seen that in friendships that I've had to really analyze, like, wait a second,
Right.
it's always somebody else's fault. It's all, and I think that just comes with growth and that comes with discernment and wisdom. But I
Mhm,
think it's really beautiful to be in a place to be like, you know what, London,
mhm.
you did that. You know
Right, right,
what, London, you were the cause of that. But
right. Yeah.
in order to really grasp that and go
Mhm.
into therapy, like, ma'am,
Yes.
here's the situation, and I did this and I
Mhm,
said this, and I would
mhm,
love to unpack, how I got here and maybe
mhm.
why I said that, and I don't want to do it again, or maybe if I do it again, how do I navigate that space once I'm
Mhm.
there, and learn from that. And I
Right.
think that is how you get the most out of your sessions, because at the end of the day you're paying good money,
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
there. So if you're going there and expecting this person to be a genie and to just change your life because you
Mm.
spoke to them about, your situation,
Mhm,
and then you leave and you're like, wait a minute, I'm still
mhm.
in the same. It's like, but what did you do after, to
Right.
make to keep up with it? It's like going to the gym. If you're going to the gym and then going home and
Mhm.
eating donuts and Doritos,
Yes.
what result are you really going to see?
That's a
You
fact,
know?
man. That is truly a fact. Like literally, I get all the time as a therapist. You know what I mean? Can you fix me? Or can you fix my son? Or
Yeah.
please fix my daughter? And I'm like, look, they're not broken. You know what I
Wow.
mean? Like they're not broken. People don't come
Right.
to me broken. And number one, I am not a fixer. That's not my
Come
job to
on.
be a fixer. You know what I mean? A good therapist will be able to get you to realize your truest potential, right? And utilize your strengths and overcome, right, to be able to compensate for your weaknesses, to put you in the best position, right, to be independent, right, so that you don't always have to lean on a therapist because you're not seeing a therapist every day, right? You
Right.
may see them once a week or once every 2 weeks, things of that nature, depending on the schedule that you have with your provider and things of that nature. But London, you really spoke to the truth there. It is ideally, and I need everybody to pay attention right now if you haven't even been paying attention yet, at the end of the day. It is about the work that you do outside of those sessions when nobody is looking.
Yes.
When your therapist is not coaching you or modeling certain behaviors or giving you coping skills, what are you doing to keep the ball rolling? Are you really trying? Right? Are you really
Right.
putting in the effort? But guess what? If you're not, don't be so hard on yourself. I coach
Mhm.
folks and encourage folks all the time to be kinder to yourself in
Mhm.
order to be able to realize that, guess what? Let's go back to the drawing board. If you weren't able to meet your goals or if things just didn't go that way, what are the triggers that cause these things to happen? What are the barriers that are preventing you from being able to do these things, right? Or move in the direction that you would like to go in? It's
Mhm.
not about beating people up. I tell
Right.
folks that all the time, like there's no shame or guilt, right, being passed around in my sessions. Like I'm not with that at all. I'm not
Right.
with you coming in there with me and me just beating you up, tearing you down, making you feel less than, re-traumatizing you in some particular way, and sending you on your way. Now, that does not mean that giving good rapport, I won't challenge you, right?
Right.
Because therapy is not finding someone that is always going to agree with everything you say and everything that it is that you are doing. It
Okay.
is about perspective and being able to think, right, about things from different positions and being able to do that. So, we want to debunk some myths here in relation to therapy, but it remains to be important that outside of those real four walls or those virtual four walls, depending on how you see your provider, to just do the work and to do your best and recognize this that your best, London, will look different every day. It just
Wow.
will. You know what I mean? So be kinder to yourself and recognize that your best ultimately will look different every day.
Come on. I love
Yeah,
that. Your best will look different every day,
that's right.
because it's so right. Every day, I talk about this all the time, but every
Hmm.
day or every week, I start off my week with a list of everything I need to do and to really just get rid of those initial nervous week, I'm overwhelmed, right? And really getting it out and really starting
Mhm.
each week with just perspective on everything I need to get done, everything that I need to do. Is really important for me, but it does look and feel different every week. And sometimes in my head, I'm like, well, you didn't do as much as last week, or
Mm,
productivity last week didn't look like productivity this week.
mm,
And sometimes, you can talk to yourself and almost talk yourself out of all the good things that you're doing and all the progress that you're making because it didn't look like what it looked like before. But sometimes I think, kind of speaking to that point, is
mhm,
sometimes that's what you need for that week, or sometimes that's really all your environment and your mentality can take for that week, and
mhm.
that's okay too.
Yeah. Look, like you dropping some gems right now, right? Like you may have been a therapist in your previous life,
Maybe
or
in my past life.
you know what I mean? Or you might have, you know what I mean, another career that you can go into if you're interested. You can have that conversation. But yes, like it is truly all about those things. I mean, it's about recognizing like your own stuff, right?
Yeah.
And where it is that you sit. Because guess what? If you weren't able to accomplish those things that you set out to accomplish, what were the reasons? We spoke about triggers, we spoke about
Mhm.
barriers and things of that nature. Because the truth of the matter is that every day is not going to look like the one before or the one after that. Every week is
Right.
not going to look like the one prior or the one after. Like, do your best with the time that it is that you have. And if you're recognizing, right, those barriers and you've identified them, do not ignore them. Because guess what? If we ignore them, we're giving them permission to be able to stick around. We talked
Mhm.
earlier about the home, right? Mental health and us being a home, right?
Yes.
These are how problems and issues are. I like to think of it, and I use this analogy way too often. I like to
Mhm.
think of it like intruders, like right in your house, right? Or people that come in that you just don't know, right? That have made their way into your house. If somebody walked in my house right now that I did not know, London, furniture moving and smoke in the city, as my mother would like to say, right? So, like, I'm
Right,
doing
right,
everything I can in those moments to remove that threat, right? Because
right.
I don't know what harm it could pose to me or my family. The exact same thing happens with the identifying of problems or issues, right? These things
Mhm.
are intruders. When we don't address them in the moment, guess what we're doing? We're giving them permission to stick around. We're giving them
Wow.
permission to be able to run amok, right, on our mental health or our physical health, right, or our emotional health in a lot of
Mhm.
different ways,
Mhm.
spiritual health, right, for those that really want to get into that. It's
Mhm.
important that we address it in the moment in order to
Mhm.
make sure that we're doing something about it, or else we are signing off on that permission
Yes.
slip and saying, hey, stick around for a while, right? So
Yep.
we got to do our parts. We really do. It's important. It's imperative. It truly is.
Yes. I heard something one time, and it was like, it was a sermon, and he was speaking about how when we don't address what the problem is in that moment,
Mm,
it multiplies into something that it really wasn't meant to be in the first place. So,
yes.
and then it multiplies in different forms, right? So a lot of
Yes.
times we're like, oh, if we just ignore it, or if we
Mhm,
just don't deal with it,
mhm,
um, it won't be, it won't be in our face. We don't have to deal with it. And then it multiplies, and then we're like, wait a minute, why is that happening? That has nothing to do with that. But it's like, no, because you didn't face something, or because you didn't address something at the root of it at the
mhm,
beginning,
mhm,
now you've gone years, and again, you brought other people into it, you brought children into it, you brought families, and it's so much harder once you have other people involved, rather than just to face it when you needed to face it yourself.
mhm,
And then now you have to navigate it with other people, which I can imagine is just so much harder, because all these other people that had nothing to do with the root of it at the beginning are looking at you like, why are you
mm.
acting crazy now? What happened? Like, what is this?
Right.
Why aren't you getting up?
Yeah.
There's so much, and I think
Mhm,
it multiplies, and it's contagious,
mm,
and if you don't really address it
mhm,
in that beginning phase,
mhm.
before it spreads, it can spread like wildfire, and it's dangerous.
Yes,
It's dangerous.
yes. You better believe it, London. Like
Yeah.
literally, it just made me think in this moment. Like literally in this moment. This is not something that was pre-planned or anything like that. The way that you were talking about issues and kind of ignoring them or sweeping them under the rug, and that sermon that you heard of, in which things
Mhm.
multiply, it is
Mhm.
perfect for life. Literally just thought about this. Problems are like produce, right? Literally,
Mhm.
lettuce, tomatoes, I mean, everything that you can think of, right?
Mhm.
Initially, right, when you have these things and when you purchase them and things of that nature, they're fresh, right? New
Right.
issues, right? Problems, fresh. They come in and things of that nature. If you
Right.
care for them then, right, or if you eat them, right, then they're gone. But what happens when you do leave like produce out or with time? What happens? It begins to rot, right? But
Talk
not
about
only
it.
that, the problem multiplies. It begins to smell. It brings bugs. It brings a mess. You understand? So,
Yeah.
like, literally, we have to treat our problems like produce. If we do not address it right then, if we don't eat it right then, or within a very conscious time frame, then those issues will multiply and will begin to not only impact you, but it depends on who's around, right? That can
Wow.
spread into other things. So at
Yeah.
the end of the day, as a kid, when you were told to eat your broccoli, right, or eat your carrots because they make your eyes pretty, I'm telling you right now, problems are like produce. Go ahead
Yeah.
and eat those things up before they rot. You better believe it.
I love that. Write
Yeah.
that down. That's gonna be my next caption.
Come on, y'all. Come on. Right here. Right here.
Write
That's
it
live. Come
down.
on.
Oh my
Right.
goodness.
Yeah.
That's so incredible. So, okay, so outside looking in, right?
Hmm.
If you are a loved one or a friend and you
Yes.
see somebody that maybe you guys have had a conversation about seeking professional therapy before or
Hmm.
mental health resources before,
Hmm.
but maybe you're too nervous or scared
Hmm.
to navigate that conversation.
Yes.
What do you recommend that conversation look like, feel like,
Hmm.
sound like? Or does it even need to be a conversation? Does it need to be like subliminal? Does it need to be
Hmm.
us sending memes to people, like
Yeah.
sending
Yeah.
quotes, posting quotes on stories, and hoping they think it, put the shoe on the right foot,
You're right.
what does that look like?
Ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to remember one thing, London.
Mhm.
Communication for everyone looks differently, right? You have the opportunity to have a platform here in which you talk to people. There are some folks in talking about their issues, that's not how it is that they get their problems out. Some
Okay.
people like to express themselves in different ways through journaling, writing, artistically. I have some folks here recently, within recent time, who like to record, right, their voices, right, or things that it is that they may be experiencing, and then
Mhm.
send those to people or play it back for themselves. So it is about initially identifying the strongest form of communication with the person that it is that you are dealing with. If this
Okay.
is a friend or if this is a family member, hopefully you're engaged with them enough to be able to identify what that is, or know someone that's a bit closer to them or the situation that can identify that. Start there. But
Okay.
also, when it comes down to being able to address problems, what usually happens a lot of times, folks just kind of jump in, nah, girl, or nah, come on, man, you got to get up, man. Like everything's going to get better. Like, nah, don't do all that. You can't be sitting there crying and things of that nature, or get over that, man. Like, things are going to
Right.
get. No, no,
Yeah.
we have to stop doing that. Yes, it can be encouraging sometimes, but it's
Mhm.
important to be able to stop, right? And
Mhm.
simply ask a person, what is it that you need right now? What is it
Wow.
that you really need? Start there. Men, women, children, because a lot of times, even with parents with their children, parents like to be able to dictate a little bit more as to what it is they feel like that their children needs, and they jump right there. But
Mhm.
these are people too, young or old. You are a person. You know
Right.
what I mean? Hopefully, a sound mind and sound body, and can identify these things, or with increased conversations or talks, excuse me, can take an opportunity to identify that. So start there, folks. Ask what a person needs. And if
Mhm.
it's really tough for them to be able to identify that, then start making some suggestions, right? Ease
Okay.
into it instead of jumping into it, because you can make a huge splash when you just dive into these things like that. So
Right.
start with identifying what a person actually needs instead of saying, hey, this is what I feel like would work best for you.
Okay.
Hmm.
That's so good. That's so good. And like you said, just starting there,
Hmm.
will open up the conversation to really get down to if they can articulate it,
Yes.
then you help as needed, or if they don't need if they're saying, "I don't need your help," then
Mhm.
that's how you navigate that space as well. I love that.
Yeah, and just continue to check in, folks. Just because
Mhm,
right now that there isn't a problem, and sometimes folks don't want to talk about things, and they
mhm,
kind of swipe them under the rug themselves,
mhm,
doesn't mean that as a support, a loved one, a friend, someone who genuinely cares, that you just don't follow up. You know what I mean? And
mhm,
take the time to be able to come and check again. Because if you
mhm.
truly care, truly love someone, that could be the huge difference in things going very right or very wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, you're totally right.
absolutely.
And where can people find resources to find a Black therapist or just a therapist in general? Where do people start?
Yeah, I think that it's good to be able, of course, to identify resources where folks can take the time, energy, and efforts to be able to find out, what folks are around to be able to help them ultimately.
Okay.
Good place to be able to start, of course. There are multiple sites that are just booming right now, and I like to give these people their flowers, right? Because it's
Mhm.
not about me personally; it's about making sure that folks get help. For women, there's a very well-known resource, therapyforblackgirls.com. That's a huge one. Please look into it. There's
Love
also,
that one.
I forgot, in relation to men, therapyforblackmen.org is what that
Okay.
is, not .com, fellas. So look into that. Clinicians of Color, just Google that. You know what I mean? It's a website, a conglomerate that's been put together to be able to identify clinicians of color within your area. A lot of folks are aware of psychologytoday.com. You can go through that website, London, navigated by the issue that you have, the insurance that you have, right? And it has
Okay.
like profile pictures, providers, even down to the race, right? And what you can see, you know what I mean, to be able to tailor what it is that you are looking for in a provider that you need. In the
Okay.
event that none of those things work for you, or you just don't have access to the internet, pick up the phone, call your insurance provider in order to have them be able to identify providers that are in your network. Give those people a call. Excuse me, I am looking for a tall black man with a Jamaican accent. Do you have somebody there like that?
Period.
Be specific of what it is that you are looking for. Do not settle. Do not give up.
Mhm.
If there are agencies that are outside, right, of your insurance provider, or if you just don't even have insurance, because guess what? That is a reality for a lot of people, London. There
Mhm.
are agencies locally in your city, in your state, that are able to provide services on a sliding scale, or in some or most opportunities pro bono. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Absolutely free. So folks don't know about this because they just think, oh, it's going to cost me something.
Right.
Look, closed
Right.
mouths don't get fed.
Come
If
on.
you have a question, ask that question, because then they
Yes.
will be able to at least either say, well, no, we don't do that, or hey, we actually have somebody that we refer patients out to or clients out to be able to help in the event that they need some assistance. So there are people out there for everyone. Do not stop asking questions. Do not stop calling. Do not stop pooling, your resources and sharing them with folks, because it can
Yes.
truly make the difference in somebody getting help, and them being able to neglect their issues and things getting worse. So that's a few resources to
Okay.
be able to help some folks, and hopefully that does help someone.
No, I hope it should, because I'm gonna make sure that those are also in the description box too, just
Good.
because I think there are a few there that I know of that you mentioned, but there are a
Mhm.
few others that I didn't. So I want to check those out as well. So I hope that can be a resource. And I think, if people have any follow-up questions or any follow-up resources for you, I'm sure they can just DM you or email you
Good.
if possible too.
Yeah. And of course, on my own social media account, I have something that I utilize, of course, on Mondays, and I've titled it, of course, Your Mental Health Monday, right? Or
Okay.
Your Monday Mental Health, excuse me, rather.
Okay.
And every Monday, take an opportunity to be able to put some kind of encouragement or quote to be able to generate conversations or encouragement for folks, right? In order to be able to do that. And we're going to pump that up a bit, and be able
Okay.
to do more things to encourage more folks, because folks like it. They share it. They DM me, London. They call me,
Yes.
they email me about these things, and just saying, like, that's exactly what it is that I needed that day. Because
Mhm.
for me, it's not about touching a billion people. If we
Right.
do that, that would be amazing. But it's
Right.
about that one. It's
Yep.
about that one that did not get any help, that somebody overlooked them, that did not get encouraged, or no
Hmm.
one spoke to their situation that we touched that day.
Right.
That is what legends are made of, when you're able to impact the life of just one person, because everyone, we're a domino in the life of each other,
Right.
London. That
Right.
person can motivate another someone else, that can motivate someone else, and it all started with you. So
Right.
do not grow weary in your good doing or the positive things that you are doing, because you're not getting all the likes that you want in the world, or all the shares that you want in the world.
Hmm.
Somebody saw that.
Right.
Somebody's life was changed and impacted by what it is that you put out there, whether it's right or
Absolutely.
wrong. So just remember that. And again, I can't say this enough. Do not grow weary in good doing. Keep it up.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Jaren, this might be one of my favorite episodes.
Go do it, London. Go do it.
This might be one of my favorite episodes. I think you just shared
Mm,
so much gold with us, and I hope it really has touched somebody, helped them, and
mm,
helped encourage and motivate them to help others, but also check in with themselves.
that's right.
So I really thank you so much for everything that you shared today, and I'm so grateful for you being here.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Like, that means a lot, coming from you, London. Like I said, I've worked with you before many moons ago.
Hmm.
As I've told you, I'm not shocked of where it is that you are in this platform that it is that you have, and giving me just the great opportunity. I've told you in private that I am honored and very humbled to be able to be here on your platform, to be able to speak on such a significant topic, and hopefully
Yes,
be able to help that one.
correct.
So thank you so much for having me, and just keep doing what it is that you're doing, because you are inspiring other young women, other young men, to be able to follow their dreams and to be able to speak up or engage in the things that it is that they love. So I am so
Thank
happy for you, so proud of you. Keep
thank
it
you.
up. Please do that.
Thank
Please.
you so much. No, I'm
Mhm.
I'm so proud of everything you're doing as well. Where can people find you?
Yes. You guys can find me on IG. I'm super new to IG. One of my representatives said, JD, you need to get on Instagram. Like, Facebook is not the only thing in life. So you can find me on Instagram at Jaren Doby. You can get in contact with me there. I'm also on Facebook. You can find me there. Just Jaren Doby is there on Facebook. Also on Clubhouse at Jaren Doby. And of course, I'm moving around and expanding to the other platforms as needed and things of that nature. But yes, reach out to me, DM me on these particular platforms. You know what I mean? Like, get in contact with me if you're interested in being able to have me speak, or to be able to come and speak with you or to your audience or wherever it is that you are. This is not something that I'm bashful about. And I just want folks to be exposed to this information and be encouraged.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again for joining me. You are welcome back anytime.
Thank you. I'm gonna hold you to it. All right.
Yes, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, honey.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of Let's Talk Life. It was seriously so special. I learned so much. I hope you guys learned so much, and I hope it was a blessing to all of you. So until next time, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Bye.